Welcome, welcome.
Oh, AJ, you go.
Well, look, Sam, I haven't been on Topline for a few weeks, so I'm just going to jump in and I'm doing the intro. You didn't know that right now?
You, brother. You do it. You do your thing. I support you 100%.
Welcome to Topline, the podcast for the best founders, operators, and investors in B2B tech. Every week, AJ Bruno, Asad Zaman, and me, Sam Jacobs, will break down what's important for you to know to be the most well-informed professionals in the market.
This episode is brought to you by Bizzabo, the go-to solution for managing B2B conferences and events. Plan, promote, and produce events that engage your audience and drive revenue, all from one easy-to-use platform. Learn more at bizzabo.com. That's bizzabo.com.
100% on episode 81. Welcome all the Topline listeners. I am back. I was back last week, but this is my official back. And I'm joined by my co-host, Sam Jacobs of Pavilion, CEO of Pavilion, Asad Zaman, CEO of Sales Talent Agency. And we have a special guest today, Alon Alroy, co-founder and CMO of Bizzabo. Apologize. We have talked a couple weeks ago, caught up, really excited to dive in. You've been through the gauntlet, my friend, the last 5 years. You've seen it all, obviously, with COVID and live events. Your team, you've had team members in Ukraine that you've gone through a lot of different things. So excited to chat with you a bit. But anything else you want to add to your introduction that I didn't cover in that 30 seconds right there?
Mm-hmm. First, thank you very much for having me. Maybe I'll just share what Bizzabo is doing. So Bizzabo is an event experience operating system. In other words, we support some of the world's leading organizations, event programs, from Pavilion to HubSpot, 6sense, Snowflake, and many others. So some of these great brands just leverage Bizzabo to power all of their events, from conferences to webinars to field events and so on.
Yeah, I've used your product 3 times in the last 3 weeks. So I'm traveling quite a bit. It's conference season. And I think I told you this when we spoke, but at Inbound, which is, I don't know, there's 25,000 visitors, right? It's a pretty big event.
25 large events. I think the number of in-person attendees was close to 12,000.
Yeah, 12,000. Okay. I just make up numbers here. So the 12,000 people that were there, and if you were at Inbound or if you've been to an event and you have a glowing green disc around your lanyard, that is probably Bizzabo. The cool thing is it was used interactively during some of the talks, like they went off in rainbow colors. Do you all how does that actually work? Do you all program that ahead of time?
That's a great question. That particular product is our smart badge. It's a piece of smart wearable called Click. It has a lighting functionality that can be programmed in real time. So I think the moment you're talking about was the Disney keynote, in which, as Disney, they wanted the session to be very experiential. Every time they had a slide in the back in a different color, they light the room in that color. So the whole audience suddenly lit in a different color. So people use that to create impactful moments. So for example, when a CEO is on stage or a keynote is on stage, you can light the whole audience in that brand color, and you can bleep the badges so that people know that it's time to get back to the main session and things of that nature.
Yeah, funny story about that. Our booth at Inbound was really close to that session. And I don't know if it was a geolocation or if we had signed up for something, but our entire booth in the area, while that was going on, lit up in those colors, which was kind of cool to see. We were also super confused when that happened, but it's great to see.
For sure, HubSpot tried to get your attention.
So Asad, I know you had some questions that wanted to get to in our docket. So we typically run through this with Asad, and we'll jump.
So I think let's start from today, like where we are, because there's this inflection point that we've all been wrestling with since November 2022 with the introduction of generative AI. And one of the themes we've been talking about on the show is the real life implications now that we are at the end of 2024. 2 years in, it's firstly, this platform shift is moving at a pace that's much faster than previous platform shifts. So usually by now you wouldn't have real use cases just yet, but we're starting to see some. And so we're really curious how it's impacting different slices of the world. And so maybe as a jumping off point, I'm sure you guys are looking at this with a lot of interest. What's your view of the world right now? What are you excited about when it comes to AI and its implication for your business and for the communities that you serve? And maybe even what are some of the things that you think fit into the bear case or things that are making you a little bit concerned about everything?
That's a big question. I'll share that something I'm happy about is that the recent developments of the past 2 years and that AI / digital noise, I'll call it, are actually causing organizations to lean even more on in-person moments. We see that the number of events in 2024 is actually 40% higher than 2023.
Wow.
Specifically, the number of regional events, and Sam, we're going to talk about that tomorrow, is actually 60% higher than 2023. People understand that with inboxes being super cluttered with AI-generated emails, and that is what I describe as a lot of just digital noise, and they lean more on the old-fashioned dinners and events and in-person handshakes. And so we're very happy about that. So some would say that AI is giving them a huge technology advancements. To us, it actually brings back the in-person moments.
Do you think that's AI that's bringing back the in-person, or it's just an improving economy, right? Because I think the last couple of years have been fascinating. We were all locked down, us in Canada more than you guys, but it was horrible. And coming out of the lockdown, we all wanted in-person experiences, so we were leaning into it. And there was this booming economy that gave everybody a lot of resources to invest in that. But then last year was a headache, right? Like we were in a tech recession, and the ability to spend on those events, to attend it, to sponsor it, to throw it was a little bit more reduced, and the economy is much better this year. So do you think the uplift is just more of an improving economy and people like in person, right? It makes a lot of sense why they like it, versus AI is scaring them out of their house and into an event?
I believe it's a combination of several factors. One, potentially a recovery of the economy, although I will say that business travel is still very expensive compared to what it used to be. Flight tickets are through the roof, accommodation, it's like very, very expensive. So companies actually need to invest more than before to sponsor these in-person moments. And I also think that people are tired of the pandemic's virtual events. And you mentioned earlier before we went live about like Bizzabo and virtual events. We can get back to it, but we definitely see a real fatigue of virtual events, which is another reason why people are rushing to get back in person. To the AI point, I think events, they serve many different objectives. I do think that specifically around regional, smaller events, this is just becoming the path to authority and decision makers that within today's is just super easy to personalize your emails and reach in masses and all that. And it's just becoming very challenging to get into the decision maker unless you're actually there in front of them. I think that is one of the reasons as well.
Yeah, I just want to agree with Alon. I do think I think AI means a lot of things, but I think my perspective is that the people that use AI to enhance their own personal productivity, I think those people are very happy with AI. And there's a lot of different use cases that we could talk about. But the people that are using AI to replace like marketers and salespeople that are using it to create more noise, more generic messaging, more automated emails, not all of which, but now there's this new sensation. I don't know, there's probably a German word for it, where you sense that the email was written by an AI, but you're not completely sure of it. And then you have to wonder, does the person not care enough about me to customize this stupid template? And maybe a nasty
Do we have a
thought
word
like
in
that.
English for that? Is there a word in English for that?
I don't know.
Sam,
Something
you
is
should come up with one.
so I don't know. I feel like the theme of like the last, everybody's been talking about or has talked about, futurists talk about like what makes us human and what makes us special and different. And I think that there is, on the margin, I don't think it's the only explanatory factor, Asad, but I also think, if we talked about GTM efficiency last week, and we talked about how customer acquisition cost is going up. Well, obviously events are high customer acquisition costs, probably. And it's probably the result of the rise of ABM and the rise of the fact that people in person is the best way to get their attention, but it happens to be expensive and differentiated. Somebody said to me, it's impossible to get 30 minutes on a CEO's time or on a CMO's time or a co-founder's time, but it's easy to get 4 days of their time, which is a really interesting insight, which is why
That's
all of these,
fascinating.
I don't know about 4 days, maybe that's a bit of an
Even a
exaggeration.
day.
Think about all the people that fly to GTM Fund. Think about all the people that flew to GTM 2024 in Austin, or that go to Inbound or Dreamforce, where if they try to get 30 minutes on our calendar in the middle of a day, that's always going to get rescheduled if we don't know who they are. But if we're in person with them around a dinner table or around a lunch table, there's just something different about it. So I don't think it's just an improved economy. I think people are figuring out that, I just think it's like the same trend that we've been all experiencing over the last 10, 15 years since 2007, which is that we are stuck behind screens and it's driving us crazy, and we don't all want to be behind screens. I've been like going to more concerts. I went to Othership, Asad, this cold plunge sauna. There's one in Toronto. Yeah, exactly. I think it started in Toronto. Like all of this stuff to just get me the hell away from my phone, because I am tired of staring at notifications. I just want to be in person with other human beings. But that's my little soapbox.
You said that as we heard the Sam's notification go off.
That was a phone call. That was somebody who was calling me, and I forgot to silence it. But and I think Bizzabo's done a great job. One of the cool things, like I'm not trying to sell Bizzabo, but they're a good company. But it's like the click badges, that acquisition that you all made, where you attach the click device to the badge. It creates an experience. Like the green light goes off when you connect each person's badge. It's not just about an event in person that's unstructured, that sucks. You mentioned a conference that both of you went to, AJ and Asad, in Chicago, and you said it was in the basement of some crappy hotel, and they were just like rolling it out in a way that was clearly thoughtless and didn't provide any differentiation. And then you go to an event powered by Bizzabo, GTM 2024 in Austin. I'm dropping in the Bizzabo line there because I like Alon, but the point is, you go to differentiate. People want differentiated activations, as big brands call them. Like people want different stuff. People are bored. People are bored and not paying attention and zoned out and ADHD, and they want to feel human again. That's what I think.
Well, one thing that is interesting, and I didn't see this at GTM last week, but there were a lot of cameras at Inbound. Like everyone had these like full-on contraptions, and I couldn't tell, like, was everyone streaming? What was going on? Like, why does everyone have like full-on cameras? Is everyone trying to be influencers?
There are a lot of people now that have really leaned into brand. Like we wrote about this in the Topline newsletter a while ago, which is that all these channels of distribution, the ROI from them is reducing. And if you believe that there are more companies being built every quarter, we share this stat of 7% quarter-over-quarter growth in the supply of tech companies, then performance marketing is only going to get tougher, because if there's 15 companies fighting for a keyword today, there'll be 30 in snap of a finger, and then 50. And so those channels are getting harder. And products are also less differentiated. I know people get hurt when I say this, but they are. Like when you compare 5 different products in a category that look and feel very similar. And so just like in CPG, when that happened, when one's toothpaste was the same as the others, they had to introduce the brand role. I think in tech, we're coming into a position where brand is becoming more and more important. And so with brand comes all the things that people are going to lean into, like having a person following them around, asking them questions about their experience, posting that on LinkedIn. It's the natural evolution as a space becomes more competitive. And it's nice. Like some of the content coming out of these people is actually very, very interesting.
I believe that also events are becoming the huge source of content. And people learn about getting back to AI, about AI's role, and actually repurposing it and turning it into just a content gold. And some companies are actually running their annual conference, and that is becoming their content feed almost for the entire year. This is where they do their customer case studies. This is where they film their testimonials, and they actually now sit on a content goldmine that feeds their demand machine for months to come. Getting back to AI, so I talked about if AI is causing us to actually attend more events, but there are many other benefits to the whole attendee experience. I think, event tech are maybe a little bit, it takes a little bit more time than in other industries, but there will definitely be a wave of a lot of AI innovation in the next couple of years. And a big piece will be about personalizing the attendee experience.
Yeah.
At the moment, it is mainly around, you have a track for salespeople, a track for marketing people, a track for customer success. And when you think about it, us as vendors of event tech, we actually have access to a lot of data that can allow an event organizer to truly personalize the event experience at scale, from like a Netflix-like experience in which we provide you recommendations of who to meet, why we think it's a match, and what is a good contextual reach out to actually help you secure a meeting. And by that, just truly leverage the ROI at that event. And think about the similar use case for the exhibitors who you really want to satisfy with the right leads and not spend time on the wrong people that are not your ICP and so on.
You can push people around in an event. So you've got something like inbound, and one of the talks is just going really well. You can measure that because everybody wears these Apple Watches. And so you've got all these signals from a body that can signal, oh, excitement, or they're really engaged here. And so you can ping people and say, this one's going really well, and people can run to it. I think the experience of attending an event can be really uplifted. Jason Lemkin had made a post recently about how he was considering not letting service providers in. Because not every service provider is as stylish as I am. So a lot of them will go and they'll be extremely...
We're all service providers. It's such a stupid comment. Sorry.
So his challenge was that they were being too pushy and there were more complaints coming around that. But if you have technology that is enabling connection in a more finessed way, I think the overall experience for everybody attending can be a lot better. When do you see something like that coming into the mainstream? Like, is that 2 years out? Is that 3 years out? Are you guys going to release it next year? What do you think the timelines are?
I think everything related to content and attendee recommendations is something that we're probably going to see in the industry rolling out in the next year or two. It will probably stop becoming a commodity. But, there are recommendations and there are recommendations. I think that people are becoming a little bit, expectations are just getting higher. Like, it's not enough to have a recommendation. Like, you need to provide the context and ideally also the next phase of it, meaning to really guide you through what to actually do with that information and like how to actually write the first reach out message for you and so on to truly go the extra step in terms of value and getting the event ROI, whether you are an exhibitor, an attendee, an organizer, etc.
Yeah.
And another interesting AI use case is at events. Events are, I'm sure Sam knows it very well, events are actually way more complicated than people think. There are so many moving pieces. And we actually started prioritizing the service piece of AI before. Meaning if you are an organizer, we know that at the time of the event, responsiveness is maybe the number one thing. And instead of, and oftentimes you don't want to kind of like go around the platform. Where do I find that? Where do I find that? We now have a co-pilot inside Bizzabo that allows you to just ask a free text question about our product. And it gives you just a super guided, quick answer to get as fast as you need to the action that you want to do. So it sounds like a simple use case, but to our particular persona, actually, time to resolution or time to answer was actually the number one priority versus something else that in other industries would maybe perceive more innovative, etc.
Alon, how many events typically happen in any given week that the Bizzabo team's a part of?
Around 200, something like that.
200? Does it feel like I guess it's changed quite a bit, but that everyone's kind of like on pins and needles for everything to go perfectly for an event like inbound? Or is there so many events now that you feel like you've gotten all the kinks out that it's going to run just fine?
Again, events are very complicated.
Yeah, that's what made me think of the question, because you said complicated. If I were like an operator at that business, I'd be freaking out all the time that something's going to go wrong in those events.
I will say that you honestly need the years of practice to make that machine work in a frictionless way. And there is never, by the way, frictionless. And it is about just having the right combination of service responsiveness, product scale, stability, and the right playbook to make sure that things are not on fire all the time. We had these kind of like, we talked about the pandemic earlier, and we were not a platform for virtual events up until the pandemic. We've never ran a virtual event in our life before March of 2020. So we were the first, like it was us and Hopin, and that was first to market. And one of the first things we did is actually to launch our own virtual event. We call that, naive name at the time, we call that Almost in Person. It was the name of the event. And it was in early May 2020. We got 6,000 registrations from the world's biggest brands. And that was, by the way, became our number one pipeline generator for the following year.
How big was Bizzabo at the time?
We were around 120 people, and I don't know, maybe $13 million ARR in March 2020, in which we got an email after email after email within maybe 3 days of almost 100% of our customers asking to either cancel or freeze or get their money back. And during the exact days, it was between March 8th to March 14th. And 2 of the 3 co-founders, including myself, also got COVID before it was a thing. So that was a lot to deal with.
You all got it at the beginning, so that must have been really scary, besides obviously the business impact, because we didn't know what it was like back then.
And so I was in New York. My wife actually organized a surprise party for me for my birthday at the time. And so on March 6th, I landed in New York. New York at the time, if you remember, Sam, it was still, no one had a mask. It was not a thing just yet. We heard about the first cases in Seattle. Google and Facebook and some of these companies were first to declare that they're canceling all of their events, and then like a huge snowball. But we did not really anticipate that would happen. And all of my group of friends, we were at dinner, and 14 out of the 16 people at that dinner got COVID. And within a week, it was just very, very chaotic. We had to take 2 very quick decisions. One is to take care of our burn rate. We had to part ways very quickly with a third of the company. And the other one is that we need to reinvent ourselves, because otherwise it's very, very clear, like we are going down. And on March 22nd, that blog post is still live somewhere. We issued a press release that we're launching our first ever virtual solution for virtual events. And we had to tell our sales team that if someone is actually asking for a demo, schedule it for the following week, because the product is not ready yet.
Wow.
You ended up hiring some of those folks back afterwards.
We were and we still are, honestly, a very, very, very tight team that honestly, that kind of like saved us, I think, over the years, and made sure that we are thriving through all of these up and downs. And we told them that we don't know what will happen. We do know that we need to kind of like take these actions, and if everything goes bad, we're going to hire them back. And we hired almost all of them. And after 3 months that I was in the Pocono somewhere because we all ran away from New York. And mid-April was suddenly we got a gong, and we thought it was a mistake at the beginning because we did not expect to sell anything, honestly. And then we got another gong and another gong and another gong, and we very quickly understood that we're onto something, and we need to start moving from kind of like defense to offense. And in May, I hired everyone back, and I think we hired another 100 people within a year. And
You raised
then started another roller coaster.
And you raised $100 million round from Insight during this, like right at the end. Was it the end of 21 that you all raised?
Towards the end of that year, yes, Insight led a big round, and kind of like decided to bet on that category, and then we started kind of like another scale up journey.
We've been talking about how so much has changed over the last many years, from this moment where you guys had to pivot the company completely to servicing virtual events, to now actually just a handful of years later, virtual events are not something that you're going to be very bullish about, right, in your business. Right. Instead, the in-person part is back. And so because there's so many more people are leaning into in-person events, more are doing them and more want to attend them. A lot of marketing dollars are going towards sponsoring them as other channels become less effective. What advice are you giving? Let's say there's a client of yours that comes and says, we need some advice on what great looks like in this new world. Like, what do people want from these events? Because in the past, maybe it was okay. You had some nice speakers, good content plan, you would attend, and it was good. But what do you need to do for the event to be fantastic, for people to want to come back year over year after year after year? What's the advice you're giving people now?
I think it's a great question. Well, I would say that, it's not, people who used to think that to have a single user conference in a year would be enough. And now it must be part of the marketing mix that throughout the year, you have a lot of different moments in which you can actually engage your audience and activate and build a community. But going back to your question, I'll actually go back to one of Sam's points earlier about needing an experience and needing kind of like a memorable moment. And I feel like the pyramid of attendees' needs have flipped. It used to be that people only come for the content, and then potentially for the networking, and then for the experience. And I think now it's actually experience first, people second, and content third, although content is the hook to actually bring people through the door. But in real life, they will attribute...
The banner where you see, I don't know, Miley Cyrus is giving a talk at Inbound for some reason, that still matters. Like, having those big names will pull. It's almost like music festivals where they'll pull the people to the music festival, but you're going there for more than just listening to that person. Sam, does that framework connect with you, because you've just gone off such a massive event? Like, does that make sense? It
makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. And I do think you need a few big names to draw people in, but I think people want, I think it's what Alon said. They want to experience, first of all, the way that I was thinking about it. It's like a carnival. And, because you go into these hotels and there's nothing, or these spaces, wherever you're hosting something, and there's nothing there. And then a couple days later, there's a poker table where AJ is dealing cards, and there's a Ferris wheel, and there's cotton candy and popcorn, and there's all of these. And the next morning you're going running, and the next morning after that you're playing pickleball, and the next morning after that you're going to a cold plunge. And I think it's this sort of carnival of experiences. I mean, that when you do it well, which I do say, we don't do everything well, but that's one. We did this very, very well, this event that we did last week in Austin. And when you do it well, what you come away with, the experience trumps. It's exactly the order that Alon just listed. You need all those other things, but even the quality of attendees is trumped by the actual experience. You can make, frankly, average seeming people on the outside, you can enhance their stature if you create the right kind of experience that unites all of the people at the event.
Health
When you
is
do it
also
well, it's
become
really, really cool. It's kind of like art when you do it well.
It really does seem like it's growing there. And I've noticed health is becoming a bigger factor now. Because a few years ago, you would go to these events, you would get trashed, you would come back hungover, take the weekend to recover, go back and be like, it was productive. But now you don't hear about the went out for a great dinner, got sloshed type of thing. It's like, I went out for a run and I cold plunged and I skydived. And it's like, what?
That was all at 6 a.m., by the way. It
Just
was,
wild. I would not have been able to do any of those. You need to be more inclusive, Sam. You need to be inclusive for us.
Well, also
but
Pakistanis weren't welcome, so
I'm
just
not
take
going
that
up in a
comment.
plane with you.
I'm moving on from that comment. Asad, Sam just mentioned skydiving. Michael Ingram now in Tandem, salesops.io to in Tandem. And there's 16 CEOs or operators that went skydiving. They have that shared connection. So there those 16 people. I wasn't one of those 16 people, by the way. Unfortunately, couldn't make it Monday. But they all know each other, and they're all going to continue to connect with each other, regardless of that experience or of that event itself, because of the experience.
Yeah, because if you skydive together, you're bonded. Like that's a really unique experience. The things you feel in your body when you're flying through the air with nothing, like those 2-3 minutes where you're just free falling, that's an exceptional feeling and something that you'll remember for a very long time. So if you shared that with a group of people, there's a connection that's been formed. I guess similar for cold plunging together. It's really interesting where health has become such a big part of business conferences, which I really like.
By the way, in the middle of the sorry, Sam.
No, I was actually going to change the subject. Before you go, Alon, I have one actual major question for you. If that's okay with my co-host. You guys okay with that? We talk a lot. Asad said at the beginning, one of the things we talk a lot about is competitive differentiation and where true long-term sustainable competitive advantage might live. And it used to be, there's one theory of the case, or I don't even know if it's a theory of the case. It just feels like, inertia, which is that product innovation and speed of shipping new code is possibly a competitive moat. But what we've seen across a number of categories, it hasn't actually been true. I haven't seen it as much in events, but I have seen it everywhere else where, there's one meeting note taker, now there's 12 meeting note takers. There's one call recording company, now there's 15 call recording companies, and call recording is a feature of every other platform. And so it feels like product differentiation or feature differentiation is a very, very difficult place to establish long-term competitive advantage, which would redound to the benefit of your enterprise value. And meanwhile, trust in an age of AI is at a premium, and therefore brand, which relates to trust, feels like it might be more sustainable, which is Asad's point about, how does Marlboro still sell cigarettes in a world of people buying cigarettes, given that most tobacco, I don't know actually, but most tobacco has to be pretty much the same. Maybe there's subtle differences. So what's your point of view on this? Because event tech, I don't know how crowded it is now. Obviously, like there's the big 500-pound behemoth in the space, which is Cvent, which, buys up a ton of companies, doesn't particularly execute well, seems like, Xerox or something like that, or some, completely archaic enterprise. But how do you think about competitive differentiation, especially given that you're a CMO for Bizzabo over the long term?
Yeah, I speak about that with my team almost on a daily basis. That the number one thing these days is differentiation, and a little bit more of differentiation. And you are right that the event tech space now used to be very, very competitive, and now it is only very competitive. And there's a lot of consolidation and Cvent that I agree with your comment about the looks of it and aesthetics of it and all that, but I do give them a lot of respect for getting to what they got. It's actually a very impressive business. And I think brands, now I'll give a shout out, like we launched a campaign in the past couple of months that is called Busy versus Venti. It's very, very similar to PC versus Mac. It's a big brand campaign in a category that no one is doing brand campaigns. And if you check out my LinkedIn or Bizzabo's LinkedIn, you're going to see two characters that looks like a Pixar movie. Very, very highly produced. That it's honestly to get impressions. It's definitely not to get demos and things of that nature. And we try to just color the industry's feed in yellow with these two characters. One of them is called Venti, from the word vent. It sounds very similar to one of the names you said, the people there like, I don't know what you're talking about. The people there like really like to vent, and busy is this kind of like super energetic, modern. And to go back to your comment, I do think brand is making a big comeback, and specifically in the event world, in which the persona is actually a very emotional one, and one that will truly remember it if you go the extra mile for them, because an event is such a stressful experience. It's like a wedding. Like you plan for it for 6 months, and then you have 3 days in which it's money time. And if you mess up, you will not get another chance. So in our case, with our persona, in our ACP, the brand perception and the actual experience like matters a lot. And we truly wanted to highlight that it's not only the product, it's the whole buyer experience in which we need to differentiate. And we kind of like differentiate based on 4 pillars on that particular campaign. And one of them sounds like something that usually people do not talk about, is actually customer service. That it's kind of like not allowed to talk about customer service anymore because you only have AI agents and so on and so on. And we actually talk about the narrative of that is that we know you by name versus them. They treat you like a number because everything is super optimized, and we actually know by name, and our CSMs are trying to get coffee with you. So to go back to your point, the differentiation, one, in our name, in the beginning of the podcast, I describe us as the event experience operating system versus the category that is called event management software. So it is not about managing events. It's actually about providing you the tools, the OS, to actually create memorable experience like we talked about. And that is the differentiation, the actual experience, because events are about experiences.
Cool.
I love that ad. Like, I love that people are doing that now, because B2B marketing was so boring compared to B2C marketing for so long. And I think this idea that brand is more important now should attract more people that would have tilted towards B2C as marketers towards B2B, because they'll have the permission to do some really funky things. And so maybe we're going to be moving into a market where the advertising coming out of B2B companies will actually be fun. That's very cool.
Thank you.
Alon, thanks so much for joining us today. It was great having you on the show.
Thank you.
It's been fun. Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon. I'll see you tomorrow for another discussion.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Bye.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Today's business landscape is full of uncertainty, and succeeding as a go-to-market leader has never been more challenging. Pavilion is here to provide you with the education, support, and resources you need to grow, learn, and unlock your full potential. Join more than 10,000 of the world's leading go-to-market executives in a private membership community designed specifically to fuel your success. Visit joinpavilion.com and use the code Topline20 to get 20% off your membership. That's joinpavilion.com, and the code is Topline20 to get 20% off your Pavilion membership. And now, back to the show.
Okay, so we've paid some bills. We're back. You guys are back from Austin. That was quite the event, Sam. No, I think we need to spend some time talking about what happened in Austin. But before we do that, thoughts on the previous part of the episode?
I like Alon. What do you think, AJ?
Yeah. Well, I just had so much to say. I was on the struggle bus at the beginning of this episode, so I'll just apologize on the jumping in. I was so excited to talk about GTM and all the things last week. I had my board meeting last week as well, and Insight had GTM Drive ahead of F1. Sam, I heard you. Did you go to F1, Sam?
I didn't go.
You didn't go?
No.
Well, you went to UT Texas. You went to the Texas Georgia game instead. Is that where you were?
I just flew home. We all just. It was a long week. I was in Austin all week.
I was done.
Well, Austin. That's what I was just gonna say. Like, I lived in Austin for 5 years. Austin, the event was fantastic. Austin felt exhausting last week. I don't know if it was the location of the hotel or whatever, but like traveling anywhere or going anywhere just felt
Traffic was horrible.
Traffic was so
But that's
So
the
challenging.
trade-off. If you go into exciting cities, exciting things are happening, people are out and about, and it's going to take you an extra 3.5 minutes to get somewhere. But then there's things to do, right? Like the opposite is you go to
The
these
guy that never leaves his apartment is lecturing on AJ
on
on
advocacy.
being out and about.
Come on, guys, relax. You know, I'm
The most exciting thing that happened to Asad in the last 3 months is him getting this new lighting. But it's like,
It was very
you
exciting.
guys got to be out and about more.
It really was very exciting. I kept turning it on. I turned on the Zoom with nobody else on the other side just to look at my face. I was like, this is so good. This is money. Firstly, on Bizzabo, I think one thing that's interesting as a business that's gone through so much change in such a short period of time. And there seems to be this culture of being able to adjust to the challenges that are coming up, which I think is a strong core competency to have in the business. And it says something about the founders and the type of business they've built, because literally they built a business that's 13 million, went down to zero, built a new business. That business is in the dumpster now, who's doing virtual events. And they've got this whole new in-person thing that's actually thriving and good, and people like it. Really cool. That's very cool.
I think there's so much complexity. The thing we didn't talk about was hardware and software, how you get those two aligned. I mean, I can even imagine, and we all know founders that are doing hardware as well, and it's very, very challenging. And then, he had part of his team in Ukraine, and how do you manage that? So that business has reinvented itself.
I have a team in Ukraine. I managed it. They're intense. This team did not stop working. They took 2 days off when the war started. And we were like, hey, you want to take some more time off? And they're like, no. We're in the basement. We're hidden. It'll be fine. And they just kept working.
They haven't had any disruption?
None. These guys are machines. It's genuinely quite impressive.
I also think, I was positing, right, that product innovation or execution, ability to execute can't be a differentiator, but it sort of feel like it is for Bizzabo, because I know other companies that are no longer in existence that were competing with them. And, they made this acquisition of this little hardware device, this click thing that they leaned heavy into a place that, meaning printing badges and the physical artifacts that enable an event. They leaned into that in a way that other people might have shied away from. And it is to the point of what we were saying, it's kind of cool to see a company that just decides that they're just, because these conversations about long-term competitive advantage and moats and all that stuff, that's all very well and good, but
in the moment.
Yeah, in the moment you got to execute. In the moment you got a customer, you got to solve that problem for that customer. You got to close that deal. You got to do the thing, and the other stuff can be a bit of an abstraction and a distraction. And I love to see companies, because there were some people I feel like that were talking about Bizzabo as dead to rights, particularly during COVID when Hopin was resurgent and everybody thought Hopin was going to take over the world. And they just.
And then again, Sam, when Hopin's business fell apart and Hopin was sold for pennies on the dollar, we covered it on that episode. Again, people were very bearish about Bizzabo and other companies in that space. And this company just keeps chugging along.
And by the way, buying a hardware business and you have a real board. I mean, you have to have strong, getting your team convicted around that is one thing, but getting a board to say going and buying a hardware business, let's go do that. That's a really tall.
Also, I liked when he told us how many people actually went to Inbound. That was great. Because he's got all the badge data.
I must have read just the marketing.
25,000. What is this? The Democratic Convention. Relax, guys.
Number. If you're wondering, this is how many people.
I think one of the things that's happening is there are new things that are important now, or more important. So brand is one of them. I think execution is now becoming a competitive advantage. Are you able to execute sharply well with priorities changing and things changing in a short period of time? Because Sam, there'll be two companies trying to do an event, but go-to-market was done by you guys. And that came down to having a vision for the event, but also just pure execution. I was talking to a guy who did music festivals many years ago. And I asked him, what's the experience of throwing a music festival or a large event of any sort? And he's like, it's like trying to tame a wild beast. You get it into the cage, you think you've won, and it just breaks out of the other side. And he's like, you're just playing this game for days on end between the first few days before the event and then the event itself. We're just trying to tame it, and it's just this wild thing that breaks out. And it takes a lot to execute an event really well. So you must be very proud of your team.
I can talk about this for a long time. I will avoid trying to bore people. last year, story time. And then we'll hear about AJ's board meeting. I'm sure it went well. AR, I hope you
Sure,
behaved
it was
yourself.
fantastic.
Last year we did this for the first time. There's just a couple of different strands. The first strand is this was an existential question for Pavilion leading up to 2023 GTM because it's so expensive and our balance sheet was not in the best shape. And at the time last year, which I written about on LinkedIn, GTM served as the catalyst and the inflection point, both for the brand of us sort of re-announcing ourselves and also for a turning point in our strategy where we parted ways with our product and engineering organization. We got smaller, we became profitable and cash flow positive. But most importantly, we sort of refocused ourselves. And that's what happened. Last year. And in some ways, we talked about fiscal years. It's almost like our fiscal year ends, the day that GTM is finished. The year since then has been a great year, particularly in comparison to the previous year, because we've gotten just much, much better in terms of execution. We're growing again. We've got the best team that we've ever had. And it was still a question, okay, well, we're going to do it again in 2024, but is this a thing that we do? And in the summer, the way our cash flows work, we build up cash in the first part of the year, and then you start making deposits on these big stadiums, these big events, and your balance sheet goes down a little bit, and it really pisses me off. And so I'm like, I don't know if I want to be on this roller coaster of like always up and down, always this big existential bets about these big events. And leading up to, and then we made a bit of a mistake because we did this big conference in Europe in July, which was in the middle of the summer, so we didn't get a lot of traction in Europe, even though it was another great event, and we didn't have as much time to promote GTM in Austin as we would have liked, whereas SaaStr, Inbound, Dreamforce, they're promoted all year long. The minute that Inbound ends this year, Inbound 25 is being promoted.
Yeah.
So we were a little nervous about it, and all of that is prologue to say that it's the feeling I have about GTM and frankly about Pavilion is. First of all, it's like the most momentum I've ever felt about Pavilion as an organization since 2020, and we were much, much smaller. And the way that I would capture that feeling is that you don't know what's going to happen. You don't, what some liquidity event, some wealth generating event, whatever, right? You don't know what good thing is going to happen, but you feel that something good is happening. You feel that energy that is ahead of you. And I think we've all felt it in our business where it becomes crystal clear that revenue is a lagging indicator for that sense of energy and momentum, that's not the most. Revenue happens after these feelings. These feelings are the things that are converted into revenue. And so that's one thing. I also haven't felt like we're at the beginning of something so clearly in the last 4 years that like, okay, this is the beginning. This is not the end. We're not in the middle. This is not as much market share as we will get. The feeling that people have at GTM is something that everybody in the world wants. And I'm being very sincere about that. And that's not true of most conferences and most events. And what is that feeling? Well, we built other, community conferences like SaaStr. You build the conference first, and then you call it a community after. And I have obviously a tremendous amount of respect for Jason and what he's done. But, when he describes himself, he's not a community leader. He's an investor and he's an operator and a board member more than anything else. And SaaStr is a vehicle partially to fuel that, but also to share best practices. But Pavilion's a community first. And the bedrock of community is not content, it's values, actually. It's like we all believe a certain thing about the world and we all are willing to be indoctrinated into this belief system. And what that means is that when you come to our event, and specifically this event, there's a sense of joy that you just don't feel anywhere else. Like you're having fun. You're having fun and you're happy and you're smiling and you're laughing. And now, because it's year 2, now I heard from more than one person, this feels like a high school reunion. This feels like a college reunion. This is the place where I'm going to come every single year to see my friends that I care about from all over the world.
I was thinking about this yesterday. Because it's an accidental career, right? Like who goes into sales because of university? Like nobody, like maybe now in the future when there are more programs, but really this wasn't like law where you come out and you have your reunion to go back to and you do the bar and you have that community. Like there was this gap where people would fall into this career and there would be no place to come together as a community. And it feels like picking that niche made a lot of sense. SaaStr is just too broad for that, right? It's everybody in SaaS, whereas this is everybody in go-to-market.
I would even just say that. Go ahead, AJ.
No. Finish your thought, Sam, and I wanted to add to your thought as well.
but beyond the niche, whatever it is, I'm just telling you, like, the energy. It's the energy. And the thing that I likened it to, and then I will hand it over to AJ. But honestly, so first of all, like, the question of, are we going to do GTM next year? Like, GTM is now a thing that happens every year for the next 20 years. That's just the way that it is, which is frankly very cool because I don't have to worry about it anymore. Like, there's
making a 2-decade bet.
Yeah, it's just like there's this uncertainty. Should I, shouldn't I? Once you finally decide something, you're like, all right, I'm moving forward. I'm doing that thing. So we're going to do it every year. And for those that don't know, next year it's going to be at Dallas Cowboy Stadium, AT&T Stadium in Dallas, Texas. It's going to be on the field. Everybody's like, oh, is it going to be like in their meeting rooms? No, it's going to be on the field. It's going to be on the field. It's going to be in their locker rooms. We're going to do events in the Dallas Cowboys locker room, in the press box. It's going to be taking over the stadium. It's going to be freaking awesome. So last story. 20 years ago, one of my weirder friends, Mike Kane, great person, great human being, really an entrepreneur that deserved more success than he actually ended up getting. He was an early internet pioneer, very strange, interesting taste in life. He was a rapper for a little while called Big Pager, and he had a song, called Big Page. The song's Big Pager. He's like, my page is bigger than Asia. Anyway, the point is, what is this? What's he talking about? This is so weird. Here's what I'm talking about. 20 years ago, Mike comes back. It's September, and we're like, Mike, we're MC, because we called him the MC Kane. MC, where you been? He's like, I was just in the desert, man. We're like, what were you doing in the desert, dude? He's like, I was in the desert, yo. And they built a big, like, it was an arts festival, and they built a big wooden statue and they burned it at the end of it. And we're like, what the hell are you talking about? And that was Burning Man. And he was at the second or third Burning Man ever. And we all know what Burning Man is. And I'm not saying we're not going to, have wild sex parties or, watch the sunrise and listen to DJ sets. Maybe we will, though. But that's what it felt like. It felt like this is a thing. There are twice as many people that are going to come next year because everybody, I'm not asking, we didn't send out a million emails to tell people to post all this stuff on LinkedIn. Like, I didn't ask anybody to do this stuff. They're doing it because and I checked, I looked, I love Alex Thuma, but I checked, I Googled, I was doing searching on LinkedIn, like, were people this enthusiastic about SaaS talk? No, nobody's this enthusiastic. I don't know a single event in our ecosystem.
Most events, Sam, are still kind of using this business to business playbook. And I think I've been thinking about AI and what is it not capable of doing that, we as humans will be relied on. And I think taste and judgment are two things that humans will be much better than technology for a long time. And when you're doing these events, a lot of it is taste and judgment. Like, what experience does this human being need and want? And those are two separate things. And when you really think about it from that perspective and you understand the world, like you've had enough experience of things like music and art, you can start bringing 2 or 3 worlds together. And start engaging the various senses a person has so that they have truly a memorable experience. And I don't think B2B events are trying for that. Like, they're still very much focused on what used to work a few years ago, which was, I'm there for the content, I'm there for the meetings. And I think people are looking for, I want the meetings and I want the content, but I want more. And you guys address that really well.
Once you have more, and it's like the same thing as, I don't know, I was thinking about Marvis toothpaste. I was thinking about interesting artisanal experiences. Like, once you do cool stuff, you're like, oh, everything could be cool. Like, why isn't everything cool? Why isn't everything interesting? You're like, well, because not everybody has taste and judgment, Asad. And anyway, it was just, you can hear it in my voice. It was just so, it was cool for so many different reasons. We had all of the team. We took the whole team down there, the whole company. So the whole company went down and we did our annual offsite as part of the event. Another thing, we're like, oh, we're definitely doing this forever. Like, obviously, we need every single person that works at Pavilion to experience what it's like to be with our members, helping our members. And they were so joyful about it. And we had the best week of ARR growth last week in 2 years.
Yeah, has to be.
And we weren't working ARR growth because our enrollment managers were in person. Like, this was just because this momentum translates into growth. I just haven't felt So listen, there's stuff to improve. And I think one of the things we want to keep improving is like, we just want the quality of the attendees to continue to get better and better and better and better. Obviously we need Asad there next year in Dallas, Texas. And we need, but even with a diverse group of attendees, the energy that united all of those people was stronger than anything I'd seen. So anyway, I'm in a good mood. I'm very excited. And that's how it went.
These are the wins, man. Like, these are the things that we work long, hard days for a very long time. We make bets and then they play out and they should be celebrated. AJ, you were
heard it here first. You heard it.
You were an attendee. You were a sponsor.
I was an attendee of the Burning Man of Go-to-Market. I was there. I was there.
Exactly.
What was AJ? What were some of your highlights of being there?
The thing that I think about when we talk about this is that seeing friends, we hear so much noise in the LinkedIn universe. You hear so much from like, oh, we just killed it. We did these things. We did this thing. And I think a lot of it is obfuscated by the fact that not everything is perfect. There are lots and lots of challenges. And so when you have these one-on-one hallway conversations, you get a lot more fidelity.
Okay, so like you click into this. What's the zeitgeist? Like you what did you feel as every event we attend, there's a conversation that overarches everything else? What was the vibe? What was the feeling?
That revenue operations is the most critical part of any business.
I think we're going to become a disaster of a community.
AJ, deliver the line.
Yeah, this was said. I cannot take credit for this. Ryan Milligan, by the way, startup CRO of the year. Ryan Milligan was around. We were all talking about Topline, lots of Topline supporters, and Ryan made the astute observation that Asad Zaman is the revenue operations leader of Topline, and it is
the biggest hater of RevOps is himself in RevOps.
What am I going to do with that?
Could not be greater.
Sometimes you just take it on the chin and you move on. Take it on the chin and move on.
I thought the event was, even with a board meeting in the middle of it, even with traveling 9 out of 13 weeks, even with a second event at the end of the week, I agree with the fact that just seeing people that I hadn't seen in a year or hadn't seen in 7 months, take Katie Ivey, someone that I worked with in 2007 to 2009, the CRO of Walnut, in a booth right next to it, and just catching up with her at the dinner the first night. That by itself was worth it. So I think there's just so many opportunities where when you bring people in. So I'm having a conversation with Katie. Dustin, the CEO of Revcast, comes in. Katie and Dustin work together. I'm an advisor for Revcast. You can have these conversations that just happen organically that you're not going to get anywhere else. And you can dig into business problems over a course of 30 minutes, 45 minutes that you're not going to see. And so a lot of that happened over and over again. And I think the quality of the people is a really important piece of it, because we've all been in conversations where you're having this great conversation and someone comes in and bombards this hey, what do you all think about hiring SDR for outsource? And that's not, and Sam made that joke over and over again, but I think we've been there. And so it's really important to keep the bar really high on the people that are there. And I think that's one thing.
There's a problem that people are discussing more than other problems.
It's just someone dominates. I really meant that tongue in cheek of someone coming in and dominating a conversation when you're I don't really.
I mean, when you're talking to people and when we are at these events, we talk about the challenges in our businesses more than what's exciting about our businesses. It's actually interesting. People talk about what's exciting about their businesses on social media, but when they get together, they become more real and they feel
you vent about the team or the people or your board or AI or whatever in ways that are much more real, raw, and vulnerable. And one of the reasons why people like this podcast, because we bring that to the table. We talk about some of these challenges that we're seeing firsthand and others might not be seeing or hearing or feeling. And so it's just really reaffirming and validating to have those conversations. My challenge was I smashed a lot of things into 1 week. And so I was exhausted. I actually got sick over the weekend because I was just absolutely exhausted from it. So
how'd your board meeting go?
It went well. I think we're coming off our best quarter. This is the public facing AJ.
Right, exactly.
It was phenomenal. Everything groovy. Look, on one-
Ruby meeting.
Ran a
Ruby
6
board
minute
meeting.
10K.
I'm embodying the Burning Man, Asad. I'm totally living in the moment of Burning Man in this podcast right now. One side of the business is doing really well, and the other side has some challenges, and we've got to figure out some of those challenges. So we dug in. Look, I love working in our demand side of the company, which is partnerships and new business and the growth, right? The other part of it is making sure we're meeting customer expectations. So we spend a lot of time around our S&B business. It's no surprise. I've talked about it here publicly. It's a challenging revenue retention part of our business, and we don't always have the best answer. And so I'm excited to spend a lot more time on ensuring we make our smaller customers successful and have better outcomes. So that's what we align to, and that's what I'm going to go do. And I'm excited to do that because, frankly, it's a little bit overdue. And also, I am done traveling for the rest of the year. Not completely, but almost.
I think about this a lot, which is that every year I like to have a mission that this is going to be my big priority, where majority of my time will go towards this problem. And we're coming towards the end of the year. And so you have to ask yourself, am I going to change priorities? Because along the way, you're going to get these little signals that can be distracting. But sometimes within those signals, there's a major signal that actually requires a pivot. And so it's really difficult to figure out, okay, should I go as a CEO from demand to the customer side? What signal do I trust to make that shift? But I think we're at that point in the year, and I'm thinking about this a lot. What made you realize that this is the right moment to shift attention? Because for you to do this, it has to take away time from something else. You don't have more time to give. So how do you make that decision?
Yeah, and this isn't, so I've talked about this internally to the company. I mean, there's still some things that we're figuring out. So I'm not saying anything that the company doesn't know. The data speaks for itself. And it's not that we were ignoring the data.
The other problem was a bigger problem.
The other problem was a bigger problem, and I wanted to solve that and make sure we were making good progress and hitting expectations. I felt like we're in a good spot. And I think for a CEO and for founders, for you all as well, this idea of founder mode versus operator mode, what it really amounts to is you have to make sure that the pendulum is always balancing. That every part of that entire process, end to end, is always in balance. And if it's not in balance, it's your job as the operator, as the CEO, as the founder to dive in and just like take it on. You have to. You have to do it immediately and urgently.
But that doesn't mean you address every fire. That's also part of it.
You can let fires burn. There's bigger fires than other.
Pick the most important one at any given
time. The most
time.
important one. Yeah.
Exactly.
And so there's plenty of fires that are just going to let burn. But honestly, as far as startup goes, this is our least chaotic moment in time that we've ever had as a business. It's still chaotic. Don't get me wrong, but I feel a breath. And so hopefully I was able to communicate that clearly to the board in a way of like, look, we've got this. And
you have my full confidence. I'll say that.
I know. Sam, making you an independent board member right on this show, right
let's
here,
go.
right now.
He just says these things. He hasn't even sent us a pen with quota path written on it, this guy.
He has sponsored Pavilion repeatedly, unlike...
Yeah, this says the guy that doesn't leave his apartment.
Sam, where did you get this hat? Happiness is positive cash flow. I like this hat.
My VP of Finance gave it to me.
Ooh.
Good hire right there.
Was that a hiring gift? Like that was for day one?
I saw him wearing it on a Zoom, and I was like, I love that hat. He's like, well, funny thing, I already got you one. I'm giving it.
Was it on an interview? Was this interview and he was wearing it?
And it fits pretty nicely, actually. So thank you, Nick Arnoff.
Because that would be a baller hat to wear on an interview with you.
It's a great hat, just generally. I firmly agree with it.
Okay.
All right.
That's the episode, guys.
Is that it?
We're not even doing shout outs?
We're doing shout outs and wins of the week. Or rants. Should we do rants of the week? Hot takes of the week.
I like hot takes and rants. I think we need to do those more. I get energized for that. I don't have one on hand, but I can pull one out of my head.
You can say anything you want, off topic, off script. Who wants to go first? Asad or AJ? Could be a thing you hate. I used to start many conversations when I was a young child. I'd ask my mom, you know what I hate?
Well, let me think about this for a quick second. This is not something you
Come on,
just want
AJ,
to
just
blurt
pull it
out.
out. Like you're a commercial leader. You're supposed to be able to think on the fly. What is this?
I don't have anything right. Hate? I don't have anything I hate right now. I'm actually
You
in a
don't hate
good mood.
anything? That's good. All right.
I
Good.
don't hate anything.
Well, then give us a shout out. Give us something.
I will give you shout outs. I've given the shout out multiple times, but I think it's deserved because he was recognized last week to Ryan Milligan, who was Startup CRO of the Year, is 4 quarters in a row. He's done a fantastic job. There was no inside job whatsoever on that. So I take issue with anyone. Sam, for those that aren't watching YouTube, Sam just shrugged at that one for the record.
All politics is local, you know.
Yeah, I know. I've
earned the. We all realize that Sam doesn't give awards away when Fred Mathur didn't win Lifetime Achievement last year. That was it. Like, you never had to prove it after that. Like, I was sitting next to him. I was like, this is in the bag, Fred. You got this. And there was some other person who's not even that old.
Fred got the Lifetime Achievement Award on the cap table of Pavilion.
Yeah, that's why he was so happy. He's like, it's really fun.
That's actually funny you say that, because I saw Ryan Milligan's shares show up for Pavilion yesterday. I had to sign off on those, right, Sam?
I don't know what that is. Oh, no, I got you. There you go. All right. Well, Milligan, great job.
Congratulations, Milligan.
His boyish face belies a toughness and a coldness in terms of planning, coupled with an ability to inspire and motivate a great team.
Look at that.
Wow. Was that ChatGPT or was that you, Sam?
I was trying to make it. Basically, I think he looks very young, but I wanted to make nice stuff.
How young is he? What's his age?
He's 34. That's my guess.
That's right around his age.
But then he looks young for his age, because he doesn't look 34.
He's very tall, so that might confuse you.
He's a Dartmouth grad. I think he has that like very
smart kid,
business school MBA. Worked at Wayfair, HubSpot.
What does this have anything to do with how he looks, guys? Like, I don't care where he went to university. Why does he look young? Like, you deviated to like his record of education.
Good genes.
Good genes. That's it.
Give us something fun.
Okay. I think we have tilted into prioritizing a sense of urgency a bit too much in companies that are going to stay focused on this extreme urgency. When we see urgency on the scorecard, we need to hire people that have a sense of urgency because we need to move fast and break things and learn quickly and keep going. I think that was fine for many, many years. But as we were talking through this episode, it seems like patience is becoming important now. Making bets.
A loser.
Who has no sense of urgency.
Why don't you go blame the product, you loser?
The urgency people are going to match with the RevOps people and just come after me. Like,
HR. Don't forget about HR.
So I think if you are moving into a world where brand matters more, where experiences matter more, these are things that you have to, it takes patience to build a brand. You can't build a brand tomorrow. Performance marketing, you can just jump in as a new company and then fight it out for the keywords, right? You can't do that with brand. But making those investments, making those bets requires patience. Developing experiences and delivering experiences that are memorable requires a level of patience and taste and judgment. And I just think that patience got really deprioritized. It was almost a bad word. Losers were patient, winners were urgent. And I think if people stay focused on that in the future the same way they were in the past, I think those companies are going to be the ones that I would short and I would feel bearish about. So that's my little rant. People that think urgency is just the only thing that matters.
If you like brand, you're going to love Pavilion. I'll sell you some stock, my brother.
I like these rants. I'm going to do a rant every week. There it is. I get it out here.
I'm going to give a shout out to a couple people. First of all, the entire Pavilion team that put on GTM. It was awesome. It was great seeing everybody at our annual offsite. And like I said, the doubt is removed. We're going to do GTM every year. It's going to be fantastic. Second shout out I want to give is to friend of the pod and Rebel and Iconoclast, a man that marches to the beat of his own drum, Adam Robinson. Why Adam Robinson? Because Adam agreed to be our CEO ambassador for Pavilion in Austin, Texas. Basically, the chapter head for startup CEOs in Austin, which I think is really cool. He hosted a bunch of people on his boat on Lake Travis when we were all there last week. And just like many people on social media, he has an online persona and he has an in-person persona, and he's incredibly kind, supportive, generous, and in person. And
another tall man who looks young.
Indeed. But facial hair helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's just one of the many people. I'm just so, I guess last thing I will say about this strategy of we've just been working really hard on engaging, top people in the ecosystem. We're having a VIP dinner hosted by Shep Maher, the CRO, I think, of BetterWorks in San Francisco next week.
Oh, wow.
Asad, you and Kyle are hosting a VIP dinner in
Thursday.
Toronto.
Yeah, it's going to be
For the best-
fantastic.
for
With
the best
the
seats.
legends of Canada coming together. all the best
Sam,
people.
Asad does leave his apartment.
He does. At Kyle Norton's request, not at ours. Kyle Coleman was announced as the Denver chapter head. Kevin Dorsey is the new Austin chapter head. Kyle
These
Lacey's
are really
probably
strong people.
Yes, that's
Very
my
cool.
point. That's my point.
Wait, Kevin Dorsey's the Austin chapter head?
Along with BJ Matthew, yeah.
Oh.
And Alina is our CEO ambassador in New York. Adam Robinson is our CEO ambassador in Austin.
Congratulations to Alina for winning CEO
of the year, which she
kids
really deserved. Yeah, it was really cool. Anyway, I'm just really excited about Pavilion. It's going great, and there's a big market, and I'm a believer in brand, as you all know. We're going to take our time and build something great and lasting and durable, sustainable that people love.
Excited to spend the next couple of decades together doing this.
Exactly. We're going to do this. High five. Nick Tarnoff, thanks for the hat. Thanks for listening, everybody. Alon, thanks for joining us. CMO of Bizzabo. AJ, thank you. Asad, thank you.
For the intro? That's what you're really thanking me for.
Thanks to my anesthesiologist. Next time, don't smoke a dart before.
You're leaving everyone, the entire audience, super confused in the last 30 seconds of this episode.
I'm coming from a medical procedure. It went great, everybody.
That's fantastic.
Thank you very much. Talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
This episode was brought to you by AirCall, the business communications intelligence platform. Deliver a better experience for your customers and your teams at AirCall. That's AIRCALL.io. Save time, save money, and improve performance with a single communications platform.
Thanks for listening to Topline. New episodes come out every Sunday. If you like what you heard today, subscribe so you never miss an episode, leave a 5-star review, and share it with your friends. Don't forget to join our Topline Slack channel to connect with us and discuss the topics we cover with other listeners. Click the link in the show notes. Lastly, if you're interested in joining Pavilion, you can learn more about membership at joinpavilion.com/membership. Thanks again for listening.